She got me. She got me. Hey, book lovers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mar, and as you can tell from the title of this video, we are doing another 24-hour reading challenge. This is not a new thing or anything, but I don't think I've done a 24-hour reading challenge in a while. I think the last time I did one was maybe the end of the summer going into fall, but we are now in November and it is almost the end of the year, which is crazy. Like, I'm already thinking about Christmas and all that in my December plans. And so, yeah, but for this weekend, it is technically a long weekend if you include today, tomorrow, Sunday. I work Monday, but then I'm off Tuesday. So I thought this would be the perfect weekend to kind of do a 24-hour reading challenge, because one thing about me is I also have like 20 books on my TBR that I need to get through. And so I'm never going to find another like perfect moment to do a reading challenge like this until now. And so, yeah, for this week's video, I'm just going to be reading for 24 hours, not straight. We are going to be using a timer on my handy dandy iPad over here that is being charged, because your girl is also really bad at charging her devices. We're going to read as many books as we can. And I know a lot of people do these 24-hour reading challenges to, one, try to read as many books as they can, and also just to get through their TBRs. But for me, I have kind of tried to make it a goal for myself at the end of this year that I would try to get to my reading goal, which is 100 books. And currently I'm at 84 books. So I only have 15 more books to go, which isn't a lot, which to me isn't a lot. But I also want to be more intentional about the books I read, and also actually remember what the books I read, because I feel like when you do a lot of these challenges, you overload your brain with so much information because you're trying to get through as many things as possible. Whereas, like, I feel like it's okay to read less books as long as you're engaging with what you're reading. And so that's kind of my goal for this video compared to my other 24-hour reading challenges videos. A lot of those are kind of under this pressure, I guess, or this stipulation of like, I have to get through my TBR so I can get to my reading goal and all of that. For this one, I don't really care about my reading goal because I am very confident that I'm going to hit it by the end of this year. It is currently 7:40 p.m. when we are starting this reading challenge on a Friday night. I have my timer ready, and so let me introduce you to the first book I'm going to be reading. Okay, so the first book I'm going to be reading for this challenge is a book that I've already started, and that is Fairydale by Veronica Lancet. And so I am currently a bit closer to 30% of the way through this book, and I started this, I think, last week, no, a few days ago. And so, yeah, this is the big book I am trying to get through, and so this might be the biggest book in this video so far. We are going to start this reading challenge with this biggie of a book. I'm just now setting my timer to 24 hours. Here is proof. I don't know if you could see that or not, but let's hit start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 24 hours on the clock, and we're going to get started with reading. And every time I take a break, I am going to pause this timer and give you a little update. So let's go. So I've been reading for a bit more than an hour now, and I've made it through 3 chapters of Fairydale. So that is the pace I'm going, and the thing about this book as well is that the chapters are a bit longer, and so it definitely will take me a bit to get through. But at the same time, the reading, like the writing of it, is very digestible. Like, it's not hard to read or anything like that. But I think with this author is very detailed and descriptive on what feelings and what emotions that she wants to evoke and for you to feel while you're reading. I feel like these chapters are a bit prolonged, and I'm not sure if I'm like the biggest fan of that. It gets to a point where I'm just like, okay, I understand it, but was this necessary? Was this necessary for the writing? Was this necessary after the 5th chapter of you explaining something? I'm still reading this at a very good pace. I definitely am not reading this at my normal pace, without annotating and all that. I feel like annotating makes this usually slows my down my reading by quite a bit. I will try and update you again before I head to bed, but the timer is still going to be going. And yeah, I'll let you know my thoughts in a bit. It is currently 11 p.m., and so I've been reading for about 3 hours ish, and I finally made it past page 300. I'm at page 320 right now, which is about like 43% of the way through. So I'm almost at the 50% mark of this book. And so far, it has picked up quite a bit since the first, I would say 30%. I would say the first 30% is really, this book really tries to immerse you more into like the kind of feelings of like what the hell is going on in this book. Like, everything you read is supposed to confuse you. It feels like a fever dream. It feels like everyone is gaslighting you. Like, those are the type of vibes. And then as you pass the 30% mark, things start to unravel that make a lot more sense, especially since I'm annotating this. I can pick out those moments where a lot of things were being hinted at before, and picking up on those hints is like just really fun and all of that. But it's now getting to a point in the book where I have no idea like where we're going with this. I mean, I have a few ideas in my head of like how things are going to unravel. I have a few theories, but other than that, I have no idea how this book is going to end. I don't really know what our end goal is. I mean, kind of, but at the same time, I just don't know how it's going to unravel, if that makes sense. It's also like 11 p.m. on a day I worked, and my brain, nothing is making sense anymore. I think this book, in a way, kind of Trojan horses you, in that you think it's going to be about one thing, and then it turns out to be a whole other thing, which I don't mind. I'm actually enjoying this. This is definitely a book that I don't think I would pick up by myself if it wasn't, a recommendation from a lot of people in the bookish community that I personally follow. But overall, I am having a fun time with it, and so I am hoping to finish this by this weekend. I am making it through fairly quickly for a 700-page book, so hopefully by tomorrow I will finish this, and then we can move on to some of the other books on my TBR and all of that. But yeah, I think I'm going to head to bed right now. I just paused my timer. We still have like 21 hours left of reading, which is fine. But yeah, this is where I am so far, and I will continue this 24-hour reading challenge when I wake up tomorrow morning. It is currently 3 o'clock right now, or 3:15 to be exact. And I just got home from a day kind of out doing errands, seeing people and all that. So now I'm going to return to this 24-hour reading challenge video. So right here on my timer, we literally have 21 hours left. So I'm going to see how much I can read tonight. Hopefully I end up finishing this sometime soon, just based off of like how my reading's going and all that. Don't know if I will. But yeah, I'm going to start the timer now, and we're going to continue reading. I've been reading for about 3 hours or so. At this point, I don't know how long I've been reading, but we are currently at now part 3 of Fairydale, and it has finally picked up into a plot that I am now super into. It took me a while to really get into this book and all that because I feel like just so much stuff is happening and it just feels very very like full, if that makes sense. Or just like it's full of so many different elements that in a way don't go together, but at the same time do go together. And so it's been an interesting read so far. And this is definitely a book that I don't think I would pick up on my own, but because people have recommended it to me, I have taken it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I'm currently now at part 3 of this book, and it's definitely picked up. It's gotten more into, I would say, a bit more plot heavy than character heavy. I'm now finally at part 3 of this book, and so I think I'm just going to continue reading for the next bit. I don't know when my next update is going to be, but I thought I would give you guys a quick update as to where I am in this reading challenge and how far I plan on getting. I am trying to finish this book by the end of the night, so hopefully I can achieve that goal. But yeah, now it's definitely picking up. And again, these chapters are very long. And so it's been taking me quite a bit just to get through all of this. But I am now really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I know where the direction is going now. Have I been able to guess all the twists and all that? The thing is, there's so many like things that happen in this book that I simply cannot guess them all. I've maybe guessed a few, but not all of them. And so, yeah, but I think I'm going to do like a full review of this once I'm finished. But for right now, this is kind of where I am with this reading challenge. And so hopefully I can finish this book by tonight. But yeah, those are the vibes right now. Okay, things are being revealed. Things are being revealed that honestly I kind of saw coming. I kind of called it. But when your suspicions are confirmed, sometimes it just feels very good. So I just had to come on here and say I was right. I was right. So we have 15 hours and 33 minutes left of this 24-hour reading challenge, and I have a bit less than 100 pages left of Fairydale. So I'm going to power through this book as much as I can. I'm pretty sure I can finish this tonight. I'm going to pretty much try to read this for the rest of the night and then let you know my review once I finish it. I already have a feeling as to what I'm going to be rating this book, and I already kind of have my thoughts in my brain about how I feel about it. I just learned by flipping to the back by accident that this book does not have an author's note at all. The only author's note it has is like a little disclaimer at the beginning of the book that kind of explains like kind of the content and possible triggers that you might have while reading this book. But literally, this book goes straight to the end of this back flap. So it is 100% 730 pages long. We are going to continue reading, and I will let you know my thoughts in a bit. So I am here to do a quick review of Fairydale by Veronica Lancet. We now have 14 hours and 24 minutes left of this challenge, and it is around 11 p.m. right now. I just finished Fairydale like 5 minutes ago, and I already have a review sort of forming in my head about this, so let's get into it. I feel like for this one, I can't say too much about it because it's best to go into this one blind, but I do realize that it is a very thick book, and so I feel like that turns a lot of people off of it, which honestly is understandable, but I'm going to try to share with you as much as I can about this book. So yeah, let's get into this. Overall, I rated this book a 4.25 stars, and I was really kind of jumping around depending on what was happening. In this book, I kind of went down to a 4 stars for a bit, then to a 3.75 stars, and then went back up to a 4.25 stars. But overall, I enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I feel like with this book, I was very intrigued by the premise of it from what people were marketing it to be. This was marketed to me was it's a fantasy book that's supposed to be very confusing. You're not supposed to really know what the hell is going on, but as you get into the book and all of that, more and more things get revealed to you. And so I was kind of really interested in reading a book that challenged me and made me feel like I was in a fever dream. This really did kind of give me those vibes more so towards the beginning. Like the first 30% of this book, there's a lot of sort of creepy stuff happening and all of that. And so, pretty much, the plot of this book is pretty much it's about this woman named Darcy O'Sullivan, and she's living in Boston in the 1950s. She's introduced as like this English teacher and all of that, who primary kind of personality trait is that she's an orphan. She's been able to get this job as a teacher and all of that, and live this life that she didn't dream she would think she would have. But then things start to change as one day she gets this letter in the mail that says she needs to travel to this town in Massachusetts called Fairydale because her biological father has passed away. And so she's just like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, being an orphan is my personality trait. Like, I never knew who my birth parents were, and now all of a sudden he's passed away, and for some reason I'm in his inheritance. And so because of this kind of weird situation, she's just like, sure, I might as well go to Fairydale and figure out kind of what the hell is happening. And so she goes to Fairydale and she sort of meets, all of these people, all of her family that, she just never really knew existed, and all of that. And a lot of weird things start to happen in this town, and a lot of unexplainable things. And, she's getting all these visions, she's seeing a bunch of things keep happening to her. And as you get into it, more and more things get revealed. Let's break it down into categories. I usually do like plot, characters, and like kind of fantasy elements. So let's get into plot. So plot, I actually really like the plot of this. I thought the plot was very strong, but at the same time, it does take you on this like roller coaster of a journey as you as a reader kind of just like, what the heck is kind of happening right now? But I think with the plot, it's a very fun plot, but at the same time, there's a lot of elements at play. I don't really have a problem with the plot itself because it kept me engaged the entire time. Were there a lot of plot holes? Absolutely, but I think given all of the information you're given in this book, there's bound to be some plot holes and all of that. But overall, I personally really like the plot. I think the more so of the problem I had with this book was you could definitely tell that this was an indie published book and that this really didn't have an editor that looked through it, because the pacing of this, I would say, was a bit weird. And I feel like there were a lot of things in this book that competed against each other and that turned the whole book into something completely different as you read it. Like sometimes it felt like you were jumping in between genres a bit. There were other times where the more so romanticy elements of this book were pushed forward more than the actual like engaging plot itself. So that kind of took me out of it. And I feel like there were a lot of just scenes and parts that personally to me could have been either cut or just shortened a bit because, it just got to a point where it was a little bit too repetitive, like reading the same paragraph for like 5 paragraphs. Like, I get it. The main male character has a really nice cock. I don't need to keep on reading that. There were just some things in this book where I just feel like it could have been shortened. This really didn't need to be 700 pages. I feel like it could have gotten to the point a bit quicker for a lot of different sections of this book. Those are all my thoughts about plot that I can really get into without there being spoilers. Next, for characters, I personally really like the main character, Darcy, in this book. She is a very interesting character. I feel like she was a really interesting character to follow just because of how long it is. Sometimes she did get annoying, but I feel like that's more of a note to the author rather than the character like herself. Like once you learn more about this character, then I think she gets more and more interesting as the book goes on rather than when she's first introduced. When she's first introduced, she's kind of a bit like you don't really know where to place her, and I think once you kind of get used to her then and you learn more about her, then it's really interesting. Now the main male character, I have to say, like, I see the appeal. I see why people rave about this book. I think the male main character, to me at least, was also one of the best parts of this book in that he was very interesting, and I would say, like, he could have been even more interesting than the female main character if he got that same amount of time, because this is written first point of view from Darcy, and so a lot of stuff is getting revealed to her in real time. So I understand why it was written in her point of view, just of the nature of how like this narrative is. But if we ever get a book with this male main character, all of these events that happen in this book that are through his eyes, I would be sad and I would be down to read this, because I feel like he is just like a really interesting character, and I feel like we just don't get enough like points of views from these types of male main characters enough, if that makes sense. It's so hard to do a reveal like this when literally everything you read is a spoiler. As for like other elements, I would say going in, like, before you go into this book, know that even though like this book is marketed as a bit more of like a gothic romance, fantasy, and all that, I feel like it's a mix of different genres. And so as you get into it, you definitely feel like you're reading a bunch of different genres. And so I feel like if you're willing to commit to a 700-page book, you really do have to commit to this. Like, if you're not getting engaged in this book by like 30% of the way through, I would say it's probably okay to DNF it because I don't think you'll enjoy the rest of it, if that makes sense. I feel like this is for a very niche group of people. And so if you don't want to waste your time reading a book that you don't think you're going to enjoy, I would not suggest you read this. But personally, I had a good time reading this. I mean, again, I did have some problems with just a little bit of the execution of how things went in this book. I feel like there were some things while I was reading, it took me out of it, and I was kind of thinking like, this part could have been done better, or this part could have been done better. But the thing about reading this book is like I was literally picturing everything as a movie in my head. Like if this was a TV show, if this got adapted into a TV show, I would be eating this up, especially if this got adapted in the same kind of like way and tone of like how like American Horror Story is. I feel like that would be such a great show, and like that would literally eat, like I would be sad every single week for an episode of this or whatever. Like that is the type of vibe I was kind of like picturing in my head while I was reading this book. So that's another thing that I really liked about Fairydale, is that like it didn't take long for me to picture everything in my brain. Like immediately while I was reading, like I was already immersed in the world and all of that. And honestly, like my only note is that I wish there was even more world building, which I normally don't say that. I feel like there were so many things that could have been developed more, and we could have really like gotten more details into and like had like a bit more fun with it, because this author, like Veronica Lancet, she has the ability to like really transport me into these specific worlds of these characters, and yet like I just wish there was more. I really wish there was more because I think she has such a talent in doing that. Anyways, that is my review of Fairydale. And so I'm going to get ready for bed, but I will probably be starting another book and read for the next like 30 minutes or so. But yeah, Fairydale, first book on the TBR, down. We're done. And yeah, I'll update you next when I start to read next. It is currently 4:30 in the afternoon. It's literally feels like evening now, and I'm finally picking back up this 24-hour reading challenge. I did a lot today that I wasn't expecting to do on a Sunday, but I ended up going to IKEA to get more furniture. I spent a lot of the afternoon building that furniture, so now I'm finally ready to kind of wind down and just relax for the rest of the night. And so we are going to pick up on our next book, which is going to be Coldwire by Chloe Gong. So this is her newest release. She just released this last week, and so I'm super excited to read this book. Chloe Gong is one of my favorite authors. She's the author that really got me back into reading and all of that, so I'm super excited to read this. I did get started on it a bit last night. So far, I've been really enjoying it. This book is a young adult dystopian cyberpunk novel, and so it is very unique in itself because I've never read any book that's kind of like that. I've never really, if you've watched my videos, you would know that dystopian is not necessarily one of my favorite genres, and so I don't pick up a lot of books in that kind of realm. This is very interesting because there are a lot of cyberpunk elements, and we're talking about, just technology and in the future and all of that. So, yeah, from what I've picked up so far, I've been really enjoying this. And so, yeah, let's get started on reading this. And I will probably do, again, more of a synopses and all of that when I get to my book review and all that. But for right now, let's see how much of this I end up reading. We have 13 hours and 34 minutes left of this challenge, so let's start the timer now. There's about 10 hours left in this reading challenge, and I'm about 50% of the way through Coldwire right now, and so I'm hoping to get through as much of this as I can tonight. So far, though, it has been a really unique read in that I feel like with Chloe Gong's books, usually the first time I read her books, not gonna lie, I'm always confused. I'm always confused because there's always so many things that she includes in her books, but the thing is, it's such an enjoyable read for me, even if I am confused. And so, usually when I read Chloe Gong's books, it's actually the second time I read through them. So like during my reread, I have a much better experience because I understand what's going on. I know all the twists and turns. I can see everything leading up to it, and I understand the world building a bit more. Where it's this one, it took me a while to understand the world building. Now that I am 50% of the way in, I've gotten used to it. I've learned kind of the politics and the dynamics of everything happening in this book, but there is also a lot of information to take in while reading this. And so, either way, though, I've still been having a fun time reading it, but it's also a very unique experience to me because it's such a different genre from what I normally read. Again, I'm not someone who is super well versed in dystopian, cyberpunk genre, like environments. So, just trying to imagine everything and really like immerse myself in this world is a bit harder because I don't have as much in my mind to pull from. But even then, I'm still having a good time, and a lot of stuff has been revealed that I'm like, oh, something is building, and I know that the ending is definitely going to pay off. And so yeah, those are my like initial thoughts of going into Coldwire, but I'm going to try and read as much of this as I can tonight and then probably give a review of this tomorrow or when I finish it. So sorry for this crazy hair. I just took a shower and I let it naturally air dry, and this is what it looks like when I do that. We have 8 hours and 21 minutes left of this challenge, and last night I ended up reading, I believe, almost like up until 80% of the way through Coldwire right now, and overall, this is such a fun read, and obviously I am splitting it over a few days. What can I say? Chloe Gong hits every time, and so for the rest of the night, I think I'm going to relax and unwind with this book. I might end up finishing it. I will maybe record myself reading the last few chapters of this book and see if there is some type of cliffhanger or whatever. Knowing Chloe Gong, there probably is. I'm just gonna read this book for the rest of the night and knock a few hours off this challenge. There's only like 8 hours left. Okay, I can most likely knock it out tomorrow. So I've paused my timer at 6 hours and 38 minutes, but I just finished reading Coldwire, and she did it again. She did it again. Miss Chloe Gong got me. She got me. She got me. I already know what I'm going to be rating this book, but overall, had me shook. And I know that the reread of this is going to be a good time. It's currently 12:48 a.m. and luckily I don't have to work tomorrow. Overall, I had a great time reading this. I had a really good time reading this, and tomorrow I will update you my thoughts on what I thought of Coldwire. If you cannot tell by my reaction, this book absolutely shook me to my core, and I expect nothing less from Chloe Gong. Let's just hop into my review for this book so we can get into the other books I want to be reading for this 24-hour reading challenge. So for Coldwire, I decided to give this a star rating of 4.5 stars. And that's mostly just due to the fact that this is the first book in this new series that Chloe Gong is writing. And I know that as her series go on, the better the books get. And so this was a really good starting point, and I think that there were a lot of twists and turns, some that I did see coming, but others I didn't, and I really didn't know how they were going to pan out and all that. But overall, I had a really good time reading this, and it just transported me back into reading like these fun YA dystopian books. And again, with me, dystopian is not one of my favorite genres, and cyberpunk I'm not as familiar with. And so going into this book, it was a little bit more challenging compared to the other books she's written. I think the other books she's written definitely are pushed more to romance, historical fiction with a little bit of like fantasy elements to it, where it's like with this one, this was definitely kind of a new start and this new exploration of this genre that's not necessarily popular as much when it comes to literature. Not dystopian, I'm talking about cyberpunk, but plot wise, I really like the plot of this. I think the plot was probably one of the strongest ones when it came out of all of her book series. There was a ton of world building happening in this book, so when I was reading it, I did get a bit lost as to kind of where we were and what places we were talking about, because I feel like with Chloe Gong, once you get over that hurdle of world building, the rest of the book starts to become fun. But the first 30% is definitely a lot of world building and her explaining to you kind of the politics that are in this country in this book. There are pretty much these two main countries at war. So one of them is Ottawa, and then the other one is Medalo. These two countries are at war. They have very different governments, very different sides of politics. And then there is also this element of it being a bit more futuristic, and this is where the dystopian part comes up, in that there's something called upcountry and then there's downcountry. So downcountry is the reality that these people are living in the year of like 2056, I believe. And pretty much in this world, disease has spread, the poor are not being taken care of and all of that, and only the privileged and all that have this access to what is known as upcountry, which is this virtual reality world where how it works is that people are connected through via like glasses or pods that they have, and via like through like I believe it's these chips that are implanted in their brains or something like that, or like somehow like these pods connect to like their neural networks, and then they're transported to upcountry where pretty much a lot of the more privileged rich people are able to actually live in this world, even though it's virtual reality. It pretty much reflects the the real world, except they can't really like get hurt or anything. But that is primarily where a lot of people live their lives. And meanwhile, in downcountry, it's not the greatest place. There's disease being spread. Pretty much transport downcountry to take care of their physical bodies. Meanwhile, when they're in upcountry, it's just them you know, living primarily through their brains, right? And so that's kind of how that works. So, pretty much in this book, you are told the story through two points of views. So, there's Ireli and there's Leah. These two characters take you through this book in a very interesting narrative way. And so, pretty much, Ireli, she is living in downcountry and she works for the Ottawa government. She's very much this loyal soldier to the government. She's tasked to track down the country's most famous kind of anarchist rebel and all of that, who pretty much is being a pain in the ass to the government and all of that. And so there's that side of things, and she ends up being framed for assassinating a government official. And so that's what's happening on her end in downcountry. And then in upcountry, we are following the character of Leah. She is a student at the Nile Corp Military Academy. So I believe all like kids or whatever, or when they go to high school, are supposed to be mandatory, like enrolled in these different military academies for this company called Nile Corp, who pretty much oversees all of the technology that runs upcountry and all of that. So they're the people that run this virtual reality world. Leah is a senior at this academy, and she gets her mandatory placement and kind of mission to end her year with, and it turns out to be with her arch rival nemesis at this military academy and all of that. And so that's kind of where her plot ends up with. And yeah, this book is very narratively interesting because a lot of things intersect and intertwine, and you get to kind of figure out and learn kind of what the heck is happening in this world and all that. So I really did try my best to explain what happens in this book, but really like there's so much world building involved in this, and you can definitely tell Chloe Gong has thought of this very much thoroughly. And so I simply cannot cover everything because there's so much happening in this book, but those are like that's kind of like the main plot and premise of this book. There's a lot of tension and there's a lot of yearning and there's a lot of fun in this. I can't really get into characters that much without there being spoilers or anything, but I do think that the dual point of view narration in this book is very interesting. And I really like it. I really like both characters, Aurelie and Leah. The characters are both very different, but also both very mysterious. And so you're kind of unraveling kind of the things that each of the characters learn along the way in this book. And so, yeah, but I do love the banter and the wit between the female characters and the main male characters. And so, yeah, I'm gonna leave it as that because I really can't jump into characters without there being spoilers. Overall, for the rest of it, like the cyberpunk elements and the technology and the just the conversations happening in this book. I personally really enjoyed everything. Again, I feel like with cyberpunk, I'm not familiar enough with the genre to really talk about it, but I think if you're kind of dipping your toes into the genre, I feel like this is a good place to start. I definitely in a way, this book kind of gave some like I don't know if you guys know of the anime Sword Art Online. Like there's some elements of that in here of just being in the two worlds versus virtual reality and the actual reality we live in. And then, also it does feel very anime inspired, like Tron inspired and all of that. But at the same time, there are a lot of discussions and themes and topics about our government, about you know war violence, to things discussing things like artificial intelligence and the dangers of it, but also how it can help people as well, and those kinds of conversations. And it's very interesting, and I like how Chloe Gong doesn't stray away from these topics. Like these are topics that are very relevant to today, and how we take care of our world and how we take care of our bodies and how we see technology and how we rely on technology. And I think that this book is a really good starting point at discussing those things and thinking about how it's going to affect us in the future, if that makes sense. So yeah, those are all the thoughts I have surrounding Coldwire so far. I really can't say much about this because of spoilers, but overall, I highly recommend this book. I think as the series goes on, I don't know how many books Chloe Gong is planning on writing for the series, but as it goes on, I think it's going to be really good. And I'm super excited to continue on with the series. But those are all my thoughts on Coldfire. I feel like that was the roughest book review I've had in a while, but it's okay because we're going to move on to the next book in this challenge. So I thought I'd change the angle up a bit, but we now have 6 hours and 30 minutes left of this challenge. I thought we could talk about the next books I plan on reading. I do have a pile that I made before getting started with this challenge, and I just wanted to have a big selection of things I could pick up and read. So the first book we have is The Princess Knight by Kate Jacobs, and I don't know too much about this book, but this was marketed to me as Legally Blonde, but in medieval times. And I love Legally Blonde, and so I thought this would be a really fun book to pick up. And it doesn't seem too long and all of that. So this is one of the things I'm considering on reading. And then the next book I am considering to read is The Same Backward as Forward by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And this is actually a book that was released in her novella The Games Untold. So this was actually a novella at first, and then she turned it into a book because in The Games Untold, she wrote this whole story from the point of view of Hannah, who is Miss Avery Kylie Graham's mom. So this is a prequel to the Inheritance games, but she wrote it primarily from her point of view. And then for this book, she released that story, but then on the flip side, there is the male main character's point of view. And so, obviously, if you haven't read the book series, The Inheritance Games, I'm not going to spoil who the male main character is, but it is from his point of view. And so, I haven't read his point of view yet, but I think I will read both point of views again just because I kind of forget what happens. Like, I remember parts of it, but I want to be immersed in both sides of the story. And so, yeah, so there's two different sides, and then also the inner artwork of this book, stunning. So, yeah, that is another book on the roster. And then finally, the last book I have is Immortal Dark by Tigis Germa. And so I've heard mixed reviews on this book, but I wanted to pick this up because first I got this at a used book sale and it was in okay condition. And this one is, I believe, it's a bit more darker gothic and it's about vampires. So yeah, so that is another thing, that this is a very different genre from what I've been, you know, reading so far. But I think because I've read Fairydale and then I did already like a book that has a lot of world building, I don't think I'll pick this up just yet. But yeah, I think for this next book, I really want something that's easy to read and digestible. So I think I'm going to read the same backward as forward, just because I've already read the story. And so I think jumping back in, it'll refresh my mind a bit more. And I also love anything Jennifer Lynn Barnes writes. And so I feel like I'm always reading one of her books in every single reading vlog I have. But yeah, I think we're going to get started on this one. And then we'll see what I read next. So we have about 4 hours and 30 minutes left of this challenge. I just finished reading the first part of the same backward as forward. And so this is from the point of view of Hannah. And so I ended up reading this fairly quickly. This again was a reread. And so the reread I feel like was so much better this time around because I knew what to expect. And so I could really just sit with all of the emotional things that happen in her point of view. I forced myself to just sit and finish it. So I ended up finishing it in about 2 hours, which is pretty good timing, I would say. And so now I'm going to get started on the point of view of the male main character, which I'm very excited about. He is a very complex character, and I slowly have to think back to all of the things we learn about him in the Inheritance game series and all of that. But overall, I'm super excited to get started on his story and learn more about him. But guys, like the yearning in this, the tension in this is so good, and I can't wait. I truly cannot wait. I just finished the same backward as forward, the other side of the novella. I feel like this is the first Jennifer Lynn Barnes novel that has actually made me be on the verge of tears. I truly loved the second story even more. And if you know, you know. If you get what I'm putting down, you get it. We now have 2 hours and 46 minutes left in this challenge, and so I think I'm just gonna head straight into my next book, which is most likely going to be The Princess Knight by Kate Jacobs. This just seems like a fun, quick read, and so I'm going to get started on that. This is like 500 pages, but I'm going to get started on this and read through of it as much as I can. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this reading challenge tonight, because by the time I finish, it is going to be midnight, and I don't know if I can read for like 3 hours straight. I'm going to do my review of the same backward as forwards at the end of this video, alongside if I end up finishing this one. That's where we are right now. I am currently on page 80 of this book, and I have an hour left of this reading challenge, and so obviously I am probably not going to finish this book by the time the timer is up, but I'm going to try to get through at least 50 pages or so of this book, and then do my review of the same backwards as forwards tomorrow, and then maybe see if I can read as much of this as I can tomorrow. But yeah, that's a little update for you guys. As you could tell from that last clip, we are now at the end of this video, but before I do my ending and all of that, I just wanted to quickly share my review of the same backward as forward. And as you can probably tell by my comments when I just finished it, I think this may be one of my favorite Jennifer Lynn Barnes like stories. And when I mean like stories, I think like novella and all of that, because there's just something about that. Like there's just something about this book that just like it hits. And I think this is a book where Jennifer Lynn Barnes really has a chance to just focus on the element of romance and all of that, because I feel like a lot of her books and like the genre that she writes in is definitely young adult mystery, and the romance I feel like is more of a subplot to assist in the actual plot and all of that, but this one is purely just romance, and it's a lot of just character development, and it's a very character driven story. And so the plot of this, there actually isn't a big one. This is a prequel to the Inheritance games, so you learn more about Avery's mom in this, and sort of how she ties into the overall mystery that is talked about in the Inheritance games, but more so importantly, the newest, grandest game series. I know she is wrapping up that series as the next book is going to be released next year. And so I do think that this book supplements that story more rather than the Inheritance games. But overall, I felt all of the emotions reading this. I don't know what was up. Literally, by the time I got to the last page of this book, I was on the verge of tears. And a Jennifer Lynn Barnes book has never really like brought me to the verge of tears, and so that was like a very interesting thing that happened while I was reading this. And I think it's just, I love both of the characters that's in this book, and I feel like both of them, they have their issues, they have their struggles, but like it's also the story of like right person, wrong time. And I think that's what got me. That's what got me while reading this book. Obviously, I can't even share with you like anything regarding this book because of spoilers. To read this one, I would highly suggest you read the Inheritance game books in publishing order. I feel like that's the easiest way to jump into the series. I feel like it's very hard to jump into the Grandest Game and Glorious Rivals and all that without being spoiled by everything that happens in the Inheritance game series. And so, yeah, I personally really like this book. I had a good time reading it. I gave this a 4.75 stars. And yeah, and also like it's a stunning book overall. The the paper ends, the sprayed edges, the hardback, it's just, I really couldn't ask for less and all that. So that is my mini review of the same backward as forward. I literally can't say anything without there being spoilers to the Inheritance game series. So just to let you know, I really enjoyed this. And I highly recommend, I guess. So, for this 24-hour reading challenge, I managed to complete 3 full books. And this is probably the least amount of books I've completed in a 24-hour reading challenge, but also when you take into account how thick these are, Fairydale is 700 pages, Coldwire is 500 pages, and the same backward as forward is almost, I believe, is 400 pages. Like, I actually read quite a bit. They just ended up being bigger books than I normally read during these challenges. And then I ended up getting through 30% of the Princess Knight. And so obviously my book review is not going to be in this, but I'm going to share with you my initial thoughts of this book. I am really enjoying this book. This was marketed to me as like Legally Blonde, but in like a medieval fantasy type setting and all that. And overall, I've been having a good time reading this. This is a really easy read to pick up, and it's just fun. And you definitely see the elements inspired by Legally Blonde. And so I personally really like it, and I really like the musical Legally Blonde. And so, yeah, those are my initial thoughts on The Princess Knight. I like the way that this story is being told to us as well. I like the female main character and I like the male main character. And so, yeah, those are my initial thoughts on The Princess Knight. I think I'm going to finish this video here. Thank you so much for watching this video and coming along with me as I do this 24-hour reading challenge. I think I will probably be doing one more for this year. And then obviously I have my other book vlogs and all that, and I have a lot of ideas for how I'm going to end this year. But thank you so much for watching this video, and let me know if you've read any of these books. And yeah, I'll see you in my next one.